everyone, and welcome to XPERT Talk. I'm Amreen, and at today's episode, we will be talking about exploring the evolving landscape of business transformation and how technology is helping leaders deliver sustainable impact. Joining us today is Mr. Rajesh Pawar, the Managing Director at Riveron, whose career spans over 20 years across manufacturing, insurance, life sciences, and ITES. With deep experience in transformation programs and global delivery, he brings a nuanced perspective on how innovation meets execution. So, sir, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
Uh,
Amreen, for having.
Great, sir. So, like I said, you have come across different industries in your 20 years of experience. So, according to you, what are some of the most common transformation bottlenecks that businesses are still facing today, regardless of the sector they are in?
So transformation as a journey has evolved over the last 20 years that I have been across in the industry, right? It started off with standalone system optimizations, process optimizations to more enterprise-wide changes as we see today, right? However, some of the common bottlenecks that I've seen in my limited span of career is first around, there have always been outdated IT fragmented systems that they are operating on, right? And the first step of transformation, legacy wise, has been, can we bridge those systems? So that's been one of the things, right? So architectures tend to slow down, limit scalability, and then that calls for a larger change to be planned across, right? So that's been one. Cultural resistance to change, has been always, and I keep on saying this is the most underrated element of transformation, right? Is the change management, right? So how do you technology is easy. Technology, identifying a technology is constantly evolving. There are no new and new platforms and products out there in the market. But how is it that you are going to imbibe and embed that particular application into the way you are working on a day-to-day basis without impacting operations, keeping the employee morale high, taking into account that it's not going to bring in any insecurities, but bring in more efficiencies, right? Thoughts around this and planning around this has been a couple of the bottlenecks that I've seen.
Definitely. And like you mentioned, a lot of companies are prioritizing speed. There is a need to be technologically advanced, especially with the first come first, opportunity that they receive. So in today's climate, businesses are prioritizing speed or sustainability according to you. So how do you exactly navigate? There's a delicate balance that happens during large scale transformations.
See, for me, speed and sustainability are two sides of the coin, right? You cannot exist without the other. Right? As you grow as an organization, definitely you need to bring in swiftness in the way you deliver to bring in more efficiencies. But to sustain a business, how robust the change is that the speed is bringing around, right? That becomes very, very critical in the thing, right? So while speed remains a specialty, especially in the competitive market that we are in, wherein, new business models are coming up every day, right? We moved in from, if you look at classic example is retail, right? We
Mhm.
started off, if you see the last 50 years ago, there were mom and pop shops. Then came the modern trade with the advent of large supermarkets, right? Then came e-commerce, and now we are in quick commerce, right? So, and it's not just one provider, right? Everybody has to scale up very, very fast. But the underlying aspect of all of this is that, is the process that I'm setting in sustainable, right? I'm making a change that is giving me swiftness and accuracy, speed in delivery, but am I
Mhm.
able to do it only for 10% of my business, or am I able to replicate it and consistently manage it across 100% of the business? That becomes very, very critical, right? So from a
Mhm.
long-term growth, obviously it is sustainability that comes to mind, but there has to be an element of speed because we have to change and adapt to the changing market scenarios.
Definitely. And there was one interesting point you had mentioned earlier about change management. And this kind of brings across the question that, many companies start their transformation journeys with tech investments. So, according to you, should the starting point not be, building around the people or the culture at the organization?
For me, any transformation journey, right? When people talk to me about transformation as a consultant, right? So my first thing is that, my first question that I ask them is that, are you clear about your business objectives? What is it that you want to achieve with this transformation, and how are you defining transformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Automating a particular part of your process, is that how you're defining automation is transformation? Or are you looking at completely changing the way you operate and do business as a whole, right? Are you changing your processes, underlying process? Are you identifying the waste in the process, eliminating it either by re-engineering the process altogether, or bringing in a tool which is eliminating it, building in controls which are ensuring that there is no wastage, right? So all of that has to come together. You cannot just say that, hey, I have changed the technology and then everything changes altogether, right? Some organizations, depending upon the nature of their business, will definitely impact, give a quick return in terms of technology, right? So we speak about AI, we speak about machine learning and robotic process automation, right? So if I take an example of AP, right, accounts payable process automation, which
Mm-hmm.
is, let's say, there are organizations today who have hundreds of people doing manual checks of bills that come in to process it, and right. But now you have tools which automate that, read the bill that comes to them, and then reduces that manual effort, right? So there, in those scenarios, obviously technology gets an upper hand, but it has to be backed by what is it that you're going to do? How are you going to repurpose the additional effort hours that you have now available of your team members, because a part of their job is automated, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it cannot only be just one thing, right? So for me, it has to be, underlying aspect has to be, before you go to technology, before you go to the right, what is it that you want to achieve first? What are the business objectives that you want to cater to, and then work backwards towards to achieve that particular objective. What is the change that you're going to do from a technology tool perspective? What is the processes that needs to be redesigned? How are the skill sets need to be redesigned of the people, right? Because we've moved away from the time when 20 years ago, when people used to manage, let's say, accounting books by hand, to now completely applications doing that work for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And like you said, automation is something that is coming into picture right now. And many leaders, especially like personally, when I go through LinkedIn, I do see a lot of leaders talking about integrating AI or analytics. But on the ground level, what does the meaningful adoption really look like?
So adoption of transformation has grown in different facets over the last 10 years, right? Like I said, initially we were all about, automating a particular task, right? Am I doing this? This task today has 3 steps. How do I do it in 2 steps? How do I do it in a single step, right? That's where the thought process happened. Now, the second thing happened is that I am doing this task in the whole scheme of things. How relevant is this task today? Can this be merged with some other step to eliminate this task again? So that's process waste. That's where process reengineering comes into play, right? Now, within that, okay, is the task relevant in the sense that, can I alter my process completely to take care that, this task is not at all needed, or it merges with an upstream or a downstream activity to do it, right? The second thing is in terms of, you cannot just any transformation is not as flips of a switch, right? There has to
Mm-hmm.
be four critical elements to it. First, like I said earlier as well, you need to be very clear on what you want to achieve. Second is, do you have the necessary infrastructure to achieve what it is? Now that infrastructure could be people, could be processes, could be data, right? Are these three things in place? The third step is that, okay, now that you have these three things in place, right, what are the low hanging fruits that you want to do? Right? Because it cannot be an overnight thing. Overnight change is very difficult to implement, right? So, what are the low hanging fruits? How do you get buy in from the stakeholders, right? How do you roll
Mm-hmm.
it out so that roll out change in such a way that it is sustainable? It does not impact business, but augments the business that you are doing. And last, it has to be a phase-wise approach wherein you're continuously optimizing and monitoring, right? Not every time will you have a play project which you decide and you start off saying that, hey, this is the transformation that I want to do, and it works in your favor. So how quick are you to adapt and to rectify and replicate, and then move on to the next thing?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And of course, every step of the way, there are some hurdles that you might come across. It is inevitable. But one of the main, I would say, segments where kind of people get stuck is the GRC. And it definitely has to evolve from a compliance function to a strategic enabler. So, in your opinion, how do you see this working for growth and transformation at an organization?
So GRC, it's an interesting concept, right? How GRC, how the perspective of or perception of GRC has changed. Like earlier, GRC was something which would tell you not to do some things, which will tell you to check certain check boxes from a governance, compliance perspective, so that you are in, right. So it was from a risk mitigation. It has now moved on to how do I sense and preempt that risk, right? If I'm going to set up a new business process, I'm going to set up a new office, or I'm launching a new product, right? Do I ensure that it is compliance from the get-go, right? So it is not on the process where it is used to sit, that business is running and then you have a GRC component bolted onto it, right? Now it has become more embedded into the process, right? So from the get-go, from the conceptualization stage, what are the elements of GRC that you need to look into, right? How is it
Mm-hmm.
that it is enabling the business to do it or operate the right way, so to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ensuring that we bring swiftness. A lot of times people say that, oh, things are getting stuck because of GRC, right? Which is essentially not how it is supposed to be. It was never like, it was only because we never took into account that factor when we were designing the process. And that's where it has moved on, right, to right now, right? From being a bolt on to being more embedded into things, right? It's like they say, right? It's moved from know to know how to do it, right?
Yes.
That's where GRC has moved towards, and I think it's a strategic enabler today. And leaders across the globe are adapting that from the get go.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, sir. And of course, like privacy by design and all these factors do come in. Like, I would not just say just for business, but even for business operations within, like, for example, in
Completely.
product and whatnot, there is definitely a new culture of building in the GRC rather than working with the GRC. So you stay compliant with that. So one of my last questions now is going to be on, given your experience and everything, when you hear the word, the term digital transformation, what is the most overused buzzword according to you under this? And what's the most underrated piece that no one talks about?
It's a very interesting question, right? Everybody is talking about digital transformation. Digital transformation is disruptive, right? And everywhere, we need to come up with a disruptive solution. You have to change the process, right? So in my limited view, I think disruption is the most overrated buzzword, right? Why? Because you need to understand what is it that you need to do by digital transformation, right? Digital transformation doesn't necessarily mean that you completely, pull out what is working today and just replace it just for the sake of doing new things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, right. And I think it's not like a magical force which will reshape the line of business, right? It sounds exciting, but oftentimes it is vague. There has to be a very strong underlying bedrock of clarity from where this transformation has to come, right? And that again goes down to like, what is my business objective? What is it that I'm trying to do, right? If you talk about any QMS system, see Lean, Six Sigma, right? They always all start with the DMAC principle starts with the first part, which is D, which is define, right? It's that identifying 50% of your problems, right? What is my problem statement? What is it that I want to do? And what is my end goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, sometimes what happens is that we do one or two of the three parts, right? I define a problem statement, but I don't know what my end objective is going to be, right? Is, just I have disparate systems today, I'm putting in an ERP, is that a digital transformation? Right? In my view, it is not just one aspect of it, but it is ensuring that there is a sustainable, efficient change across technology, people, and process, right? That forms digital transformation, right? So when people say that we want to disrupt things, that prompts me and probes me to ask them what is it that they want to mean by disruption, right? Yes, there have been instances where markets got disrupted by completely new products, right? Where nobody thought that we would move ever away from or using UPI, right? Everybody used cards, and certainly now digital payments are the norm. That's a disruptor in the market. But there was a clear-cut definition, identification of a problem area, a solution, and the objective that's required.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most underrated word that you asked me is the element of change management.
Mhm.
I like I said, identifying the technology is easy. You identified a problem saying that I want to change the way I'm doing sales. You go in the market, you identify the best and best class CRM solution, which is giving you everything, which is giving you control. But we don't factor into account how is this process change going to impact the people who are going to run the process,
Mhm.
right? Because everybody is used to doing a certain way, right? There is a level of transparency that comes in when you move towards systems. There is a change in the way that accountability shifts that are happening, right? There
Mhm.
are overt responsibilities, covert responsibilities that come into play, right? All of these things need to be planned out separately. I have bought a tool, I have bought a best in class tool, but if I don't train my team to be skilled enough to operate that tool is going to fail.
Definitely, yes.
So it has to be change management has to be top down. Everybody needs to be bought in. There has to be complete alignment and belief that this is something good that is happening. It is going to happen in phases, right? This is how my job is going to evolve into something which is much more qualitative than what I'm doing right now, right? It's very, very important towards this. And we've seen in industry, quite a lot of places where change management, which they have not taken into account, stakeholder management not taken projects don't go the way they are planned. So I think
Mhm.
that's the most underrated buzzword from if I have to.
Definitely. I found it very interesting when you mentioned the word disruption, because that is definitely, like you said, it's everywhere. Like whenever we go on LinkedIn, we go on any networking platform, you see the word disruption. You feel like, oh wow, it's a huge, big, huge change. But then again, the change in every organization, especially when it comes to digital transformation, I believe it starts by the smaller things, things that can be easily done, and then moving on to bigger things. And just like how you mentioned earlier, so it's not really a disruption, then more like a change. It's a transformation, like the word suggests. So thank you so much, sir. It was really a pleasure learning from you over here. And honestly, I believe that our audience will take away really good information and insights from your experience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Amreen. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Bye.
you.